So welcome everyone to this event. I'm very happy to receive you all on this webinar about ocean literacy in the Atlantic that will showcase the ocean literacy efforts for the Atlantic. This webinar, as some of you know, is part of the outreach activities of the AtlantECO project. And my name is Ana Vitória Teresa. I work as ocean literacy consultant for the IOC UNESCO, and I will be moderating this session today. So I'm also part of the AtlantECO team, the work package 9, which we are co-leading with Tara Ocean Foundation. And as some of you know, the AtlantECO project is a European funded project focused on developing resources for a better understanding of the Atlantic and also a better management of the Atlantic ocean and its ecosystems. And the project focuses on 3 pillars of research: the ocean microbiome, the plastics, and the plastisphere, and also the seascape connectivity. So the project brings together experts, scientists, and also pioneers from all over Europe, Brazil, and South Africa. And today we will hear a bit more from ocean literacy case studies from the Atlantic and also activities that are being developed. So ocean literacy, for those that are not familiar with the topic yet, is the understanding of the ocean influence on you and your influence on the ocean. And we will hear more about this topic today with my colleague, Francesca Santoro, who will present this topic for you today. And we all have an influence on the ocean, even people that live far from the sea. So it's about this understanding ocean literacy. Today, we will also hear more about what is ocean literacy and how this concept can be applied in practice. And before I pass the floor to the speakers, I would like to bring some considerations for you about this event. So first of all, when you enter the room, if you could please close your microphone, that would be good, because this session is also being recorded. Second, if you have any question about the webinar, about the speakers, you can always write on the chat, because we will have some time at the end of the session to read the questions and to address them to the speakers. And third, if you need any support with Zoom, you can also write on the chat, because we have our colleagues that can support you. Our meeting today will start by understanding the concept of ocean literacy. We will later hear examples of ocean literacy in the Atlantic and also understand how those activities are being held by experts. We also have some videos that will be presented by some speakers that unfortunately are not able to be here with us today. And finally, we have an inspiring talk about frugal science and how it can contribute to ocean literacy. So to start this event, we will understand what is the concept of ocean literacy. And for this session, I will call my colleague, Francesca Santoro, who is the program specialist in the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, the IOC UNESCO, where she is in charge of ocean literacy and ocean science communication activities, as well as the coordination of a global partnership to raise the awareness of stakeholders on the importance of the ocean for the planet. So Francesca, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ana Vitória, and hello to all. It's really nice to be here with you. It's a pleasure to be able to address and to tell you a few words about what is ocean literacy. So my presentation is really, let's say, an introduction, a very brief introduction to the concept of ocean literacy. So I'm actually going to, shall I share my screen? I think it would be easier for me if I can share my screen. Can I do that, Ana Vitória?
I think you are able to do it. Okay. Now you can, Francesca.
Okay, great. Okay, so as already mentioned by Ana Vitória, this is, let's say, an internationally acknowledged definition of what is ocean literacy. And ocean literacy is an understanding of the ocean influence on you and your influence on the ocean. The ocean literacy concept is really something that as I will explain later, is evolving quite a lot. But in a nutshell, is really becoming more aware, but also we will see that the awareness is really the starting point of ocean literacy, and it's really about understanding that we are all connected to the ocean in a way or another, either if we live in a coastal city or if we live in a mountain in a city, we are all connected to the ocean, and we all have an influence on the ocean, either positive or negative, as well as the same applies for the influence of the ocean on us. It can be positive or negative, but in a way or another, we are all connected to the ocean. The ocean literacy is based on a framework made of 7 essential principles. These are, I like to call these principles the ABC of ocean knowledge. It's really like the building blocks of our knowledge of the ocean. They are sort of like describing us the way in which we should understand the ocean, from the first principle, which is the one I like the most, which tell us that there is only one big ocean on this planet. That it's all interconnected. I think it's a very nice also metaphor and concept for all of us, reminding us that we are all connected on this planet. It's very important to say that an ocean literate person is not only a person who understands the ocean influence on us and our influence on the ocean, but much more importantly is a person that then is also able to communicate about the ocean in a meaningful way. And even more importantly for me, a person that is able to make informed and responsible decisions when it comes to ocean resources. This is really the essence of ocean literacy for me. So as I was saying before, it's really not only about understanding, it's not only an awareness, but it's really becoming capable of taking decisions, informing the others about the importance of the ocean and our effects on the ocean. So here you can see a little like history of ocean literacy. It is true that we are talking about ocean literacy, a concept that was developed in the US, but of course, our connection with the ocean is something that is related to our own traditions, even if we live in the Mediterranean as me, or in the Pacific, or in other areas of the world. So it's really something intrinsically linked with our traditions, traditional cultures across the world, and how really, what are the values that we attach to the ocean, what is the importance that we attach to the ocean. In any case, the concept of ocean literacy was developed by a group of educators and scientists in the US, and actually everything started by the acknowledgement that there is very little ocean knowledge and ocean science in formal curriculum. So they gather together, they organize a number of events and workshops in order to find solutions to this gap, and they came up with this framework that, as I was saying before, is based on 7 essential principles. So this is really what happened in the US, but then a lot of countries started to use these principles, adapt these principles, translate these principles to their local conditions, and in particular, I know that here we hear a lot about experiences and examples of ocean literacy, but some of the first countries that, that took ocean literacy on board and adapted to their local context were Portugal and Canada. And what is important to say that more and more we are seeing networks of ocean literacy being formed, either being them national or regional. So it's really nice to see that all of these networks are, again, mainly gathering together scientists and educators, but we are seeing the more and more also other people and people coming from other sectors becoming interested in the concept of ocean literacy. UNESCO started to work on ocean literacy in 2015, 2016. And basically, our role is really to facilitate international collaboration around ocean literacy. And of course, we all know that, I mean, the ocean international community had really a very important moment in 2017 when the first UN Ocean Conference was organized. Ocean literacy really, I mean, at the time was really the first time that ocean literacy got some attention in such an international and important event. And in fact, in the end, ocean literacy was mentioned in the final outcome document of that conference. And we also had a very successful side event that really was a big driver, a big push for the following activities that we had and we all developed together on ocean literacy. As I was saying before, ocean literacy is a concept developed in the US, but then we saw really that some other countries took it on board and adapted to their local context. This is really key because we really need to understand that ocean literacy, again, as I was saying before, is really about our values, the values that we attach to the ocean, the perception that we have about the ocean, the use that we do of ocean resources. And of course, this changes very much according to where we are. So it's really important that ocean literacy as a concept is taken by different regions, by different countries, adapted to their local needs. As I was saying before, it doesn't really matter where we are, if we are living in coastal areas, rural areas, in cities. It's really a concept that needs to be, I would say, used and reinvented, I would say, according to the different needs. As I was saying before, this is a concept that is really evolving. It started really as something mainly for schools and educators, but also from my experience, I can tell you that it's becoming more and more relevant for the private sectors, for policymakers, for different stakeholders, because we actually, when we have to take decisions on ocean resources, we need to be, first of all, aware, but we also, and I insist a lot on this, we need to have the tools to really use the ocean knowledge that is produced by ocean scientists and take our own decisions on that. But we really need to be empowered to use that ocean knowledge. So for me, really, the importance of ocean literacy is really to make people, as I was saying, empowered, making people feel capable of using that knowledge that is produced by scientists in our daily work, in our daily life. Ocean literacy also, of course, is very much linked to the Agenda 2030, of course, SDG 14 mainly, but of course, not only SDG 14. The first other SDG that is relevant for ocean literacy is SDG 4, especially when it comes to the target SDG 4.7, which is about education for sustainable development. And then we go back to what I was saying before. So really using the tools and the approaches of ocean literacy to create, let's say, ocean citizens. But of course, all the other SDGs we know are linked to the ocean when we talk about sustainable consumption and production, climate action, biodiversity, and let alone the fact that also SDG 17 is really important for ocean literacy, which is all about partnerships and collaborations. So I know that it's really key when we talk about this type of initiatives to be able to give some information and tips on what are the elements that make a successful ocean literacy initiative. First of all, as you might have seen, I have insisted a lot the importance of adapting what we do to cultural context. Cultural, geographical context, because something that is relevant for again, I use my example of the Mediterranean culture, is not valid or is not so relevant for the Atlantic or the Pacific. So we need to make sure that what we do is really adapted to the cultural context and geographical context. Of course, another key point is to understand the target audiences for whom we are developing an ocean literacy initiative, for schools, for decision makers, as I was saying before, for the private sector. We really need to find the hook, the right hook, to make people understand that this is an activity that is relevant and will become useful for their work or their lives. Again, that it is adaptable to different sectors, inclusive, of course. We need to be sure that we are able to include, for example, traditional knowledge, that we are including other type of knowledges that exist, and that we are not only including the scientific knowledge. Of course, we need to be sure that we are accurate, that what we do is based on science, and of course, inspire change. Again, I insist on this idea that if we want to measure the success of an ocean literacy initiative, we really need to be able to measure behavior change. Of course, this is not straightforward. Measuring behavioral change is not easy, and we are currently trying to set up a research project that is going to help us to see how we can measure that behavioral change. And of course, for this, we will have to work with social science in close collaboration with social scientists in order to be able to I would say, again, not only measure this behavioral change, but also understand what are the most useful and most effective tools to encourage people to change their behavior, to become more sustainable, of course, when it comes to ocean resources. I'm going to present here a successful story because this project not only was successful when it comes to engaging schools, but really from the starting point, I think it's really an interesting case study. The project is called Sea Beyond. It was developed by us, by the IOC, in partnership with Prada, and it was addressed to secondary schools from all around the world, from 10 cities. And the idea was really to not only, again, train teachers and students on ocean literacy, but really make them the protagonist of the initiatives. So the final stage of the project was to ask to the students to develop an awareness campaign on the ocean. So going back to what I was saying before, awareness is really the starting point for ocean literacy, but then we go, let's say, up in a ladder, and the more we go up in the ladder, the more we get to the point that we make people, as I was saying before, capable of becoming active citizens. As I was saying before, in the first phase, educators received training and lesson plans on how to use ocean literacy in the classroom, and then the students participated in the creation of an awareness campaign on the ocean, and specifically on the concept of circular economy and marine litter. There was then an international competition, and the best project was selected by a jury. What is really important in this project was that, first of all, it was developed through a public-private partnership. So here we have a big internationally known brand that decided to engage in such an activity. Together with an international organization as UNESCO. And also we have to consider that this happened during the pandemic. So the project had a lot of stop and go, but the feedback that we had from the student was that being able to work on such a project was really something really positive for them, considering the very difficult moment that they were living. So that the ocean was inspiring them to think about a positive future and to let them think that they could really have a saying in their very future. So this project was so successful that now we are working on a second edition of this project, enlarging to more countries, including more people, and even the company itself has asked me to promote ocean literacy with their employees. This is, I think, another element when we tell the these successful stories, because really we are seeing a change, not only in the students, but also in the company itself, that felt, after having worked with us on this project, that their employees themselves needed a training on ocean literacy, and their employees themselves needed to be part of this change that we are willing to see for the future. So this was really, in a nutshell, what ocean literacy is. Some of the elements, of course, we could talk many more hours about what is ocean literacy, giving many more examples. But I know that we were here about more examples, so I will stop here now. And of course, I will be available for more questions later. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much for this amazing presentation, Francesca. Remembering everyone that if you have questions about ocean literacy, you can always write on the chat. So now I will pass the word to Andrea Abreu, who is the head of environment and climate policy of Foundation Tara Ocean, and will present the ocean literacy efforts of the organization and how ocean literacy is also developed in practice. Andrea is also part of the AtlantECO team. So Andrea, please, you can present.
Thank you, Ana Victoria. Thank you, Francesca, for this very nice presentation on the overview of ocean literacy. It's with pleasure I'm here with colleagues from AtlantECO, and it's a pleasure to welcome colleagues from sister projects also. I see some of them here. So Tara Ocean Foundation is the work package leader for AtlantECO Communication and Outreach with UNESCO. And with Francesca and Ana Victoria and the Tara team that is also here with Miriam and Marilu, we are designing the tools that will be proposed to AtlantECO community in this next 4 years of project. So I prepared, I tried to share my screen. I prepared with Miriam a very short presentation. I fear I still cannot share, Anna.
If you cannot, my colleague Fiona can share for you.
Okay, I'll send you the presentation. So just to start, the Tara Ocean Foundation is now, we have almost 20 years of activity, and since the beginning, the idea was to share science produced on board. So we can go to the next slide, please. Explore and share, actually, it's the baseline of Tara since some years, and we are really committed to support the best available science in the boat, and then to share the results, the first images, samples, and to translate the science to public. Please, next slide. Some principles and targets here, just to have an overview of the foundation. The targets: education in schools. There's a very structured program involving schools in France since more than 10 years. Citizen, grand public, with exhibits and films and other tools. And also to try to put some contents on many spaces, different spaces, to include plankton, for instance, in educational programs and PhD scholar programs. So giving the ocean science a broader dimension to share, to inform debates, to bridge with policymakers, and etc. So it's really part of our philosophy since the beginning. And we met ocean literacy concept some 4 or 5 years ago.
I think we lost André for a minute. Okay, it seems like that André is having some internet connection problems. I will wait some minutes to see if he comes back. Okay, it seems like André is lost his connection.
Shall we
André?
move on to the next one, Anna?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I'm thinking the same thing. Okay, so I will. He's not here, right? No. Okay, I will quickly then call our next speaker, who is Dr. Andrea Green Kotler, who is a biologist with a PhD degree in biological oceanography. Most of her academic life was devoted to the study of marine invertebrate larvae, and since 2016, she has been part of the AtlantECO team, one initiative focused on ocean science and ocean literacy. She's currently ESR on AtlantECO project, acting on work packages 4, 9, and 10 by University Federal de Santa Catarina. So please, Andrea, the floor is yours. As soon as Andrea presents, we can also come back to Andrea.
Is that all right, Andrea?
I'm back. I'm very sorry. I was disconnected by Wi-Fi problem. I'm back with my 4G, my.
Andrea, if it's not a problem, I just call it the next speaker. Do you prefer to continue your presentation?
Yes, if I can. Just.
Okay, don't worry. So you can present later. I can call Andrea.
Sorry, very sorry for that.
Don't worry.
Thank you, Flora. Thank you for this. So yes, you can go to next slide or be short. So just to, I was telling that we met ocean literacy concept some years ago, and we tried with the TADA team to adapt and to fit into the guidelines. And since then, we are in progress. And so for AtlantECO, we are designing some tools that will be proposed to the consortium and to partners. And that can be used as a part of the story about the Atlantic we intend to build. I think there's still room to develop storytelling with some main issues like Amazon plume or Antarctica or the seamounts, etc. So here are the tools we proposed. Please, next slide. About the plastic. So the good news that the tools are already translated in Portuguese because of our partnership with the embassy. So we have pedagogic kit pedagógico with an exhibit and a series of quiz and games, which we call it the La Mallette Pédagogique on Plastics, that we'll propose for partners and for all the 6 vessels that will be in AtlantECO. Next slide, please. Some images of the already used exhibit in France. Some images of the La Mallette with the science kit, the TADA mag on microplastic, which is already translated and with the logo. All this will be, of course, AtlantECO products with the logo, mag, and also 2 films we translated in Portuguese that will be available for the project. Next slide, please. These are some images from the exhibit, the panels. Really, the idea is to say plastic on sea, solutions on land. So circular economy, no way to clean the ocean. We really need to explain this very clearly, that it's a matter of changing consumption partners, changing our way to see the plastics on land, and of course to promote a better management of waste and water to go forward. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the La Mallette. There's a card games. There's a set of dominoes. There's some box of plastic samples, board games, and a teacher's booklet. There's kind of guide to apply the Mallette. And we'll start to test this in Belém, the Belém port call already, and we hope to have with COVID restrictions, but we hope to have all the schools involved in AtlantECO. Also, the Blue School program can be plugged into this material. Next slide, please. And I'm finishing. Again, this is a kind of presentation of how it looks like. Also, we have some videos that were also translated in Portuguese about plastics. Next slide, please. Yes, to finish, just how we conceive this tool with Miriam and Marilu, which are hearing us. First, a notion of plastic, really the importance of explore and understand. Then why the biodiversity is in danger. So the problem is that this plastic is arriving in the nature and are threatening biodiversity. After, from the ocean to the source, from where it comes. So we explore the sources of these microplastics and try to explain what the fibers, textile, what are primary microplastics and secondary microplastics from packaging, etc. So we explain these plastics on all its forms, and actually we have in the foundation an expert on plastics and circular economy, which is studying and making propositions about different plastics that can be less harmful than others. I won't enter into details. And then from science to action and plastics today and tomorrow, inspiring. It's very important not to fall on this kind of chaotic and very pessimistic. We are invaded by plastics. We need to ban plastics from everything. I think there's a matter of conscience. There's a matter of progress, of circular economy entering really into the countries more strongly, and not kind of catastrophe. It's a transition, ecological transition that we call in France. Next slide, and I think it's the last one. Yeah, so AtlantECO is in the center of these tools, but also in synergy with other projects. Of course, Anchor and the sister projects in the All Atlantic flagship, but also with Embassy of France in Brazil and many partners. We have there's a project called France Ecolab, which is already working with 50 schools and 200 young activists. A very nice project that will help us to give more impact to AtlantECO outreach and ocean literacy actions. And the Mission Microbiome de Terra, which is the whole 3-year mission of the boat that went first to Chile, and then we go to Brazil, and then to Argentina, Antarctica, and after to Africa. There's a whole mission about the microbiome, and there's also many interactions with Tara directly that can benefit AtlantECO and all the partners in the project. Sorry for this technical problem, and if I was too long. Thank you. Next slide, just to thank you all.
Thank you very much, Andre, for the presentation. I will now recall our next speaker, who is Dr. Andrea Green-Kotler, a biologist with a PhD in biological oceanography, and who dedicated her life to study marine invertebrate larvae since 2016, and is part of the AtlantECO team as well. So please, Andrea, the floor is yours.
Okay. let me just share my screen. Presentation. Is that all right? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank you, Ana Vitória, for the opportunity to present today. It's a pleasure to talk about an outreach action where each volunteer who contributed to its realization did it aiming the health of the ocean and the environment. In 2018, we were invited, the AtlantECO team, to set up a 40 meter square booth in Volvo Ocean Race stopover here in Brazil, where we would receive school groups and local population to talk about ocean literacy. For those who don't know, all Volvo Ocean Race stopovers around the world involves the construction of an entire regatta village with restaurants, boat booths, and many attractions. So we had an empty space of 40 meter squares. That's quite a lot. And don't get me wrong, we were very glad about it, but it's a big place to fill up. And at that time, we only had few outreach materials. We did have, however, lots of ideas concerning the messages we would like to communicate and discuss. People really excited to participate and contribute to the event. And as always, a very tight budget. Well, I don't have time to explain you now how we overcome this, but we did it, and the result was beautiful. We managed to build an educational, colorful, and dynamic booth with playful and self-explanatory panels, which facilitate the communication with the public. So during 17 days of event, we received 40 school groups, totaling about 1,000 students aged between 6 and 12 years old, and an even greater number of residents and tourists. To meet this huge demand, and it was really intense, we had the kind participation of 30 volunteers among students and professors from UFSC and a local university. The booth was divided into sectors, and at the end, we realized that it was a great strategy. We could talk about AtlantECO and marine research, plankton and microplastics, and we also had a panel showing how a food chain can be contaminated by microplastics and plastisphere. We had interactive modules of litter impact on animals, an infographic showing how garbage reaches the ocean, an exhibition of garbage collecting our coast, and a panel with several examples of what each citizen can do to change this sad reality, emphasizing that we are all responsible for the ocean health and that small behavior changes in our daily lives can in fact generate big and positive transformations. So school groups were welcome together and then divided into smaller groups that would take turns. And it worked very well. The only problem was that everyone wanted to get right away on the microscopes. For most, this was the first opportunity and maybe the only one to get to know a microscope and also marine plankton organisms. For one afternoon, the AtlantECO docked in the village and was open to visitation when approximately 500 people could go on board. This is an image of our next event in the same year, but I think it's important to show you that all Volvo structure, the panels, interactive models, and so on, could be reused in many other outreach events. On my last slide, I leave some examples of Brazilian projects, institutions, and initiatives working with ocean literacy. Many of them focus on charismatic species, such as dolphins and whales, which is great because they really get attention, but none on marine microbiome, despite its huge importance. However, I'm sure that with the AtlantECO team and partners, we can change this scenario very soon. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It seems a very interesting project, and to see the kids getting in touch with the topic, it's very inspiring. Our next speaker is Caroline. Our next speaker is Caroline Schio from Brazil. She has an oceanography degree from the University of Vale do Itajaí, Brazil, and is postgraduated in fisheries economics and management from University of Barcelona. She also holds a master degree on agroecosystems from Federal University of Santa Catarina. And in 2011, she created a pioneer citizen science project called Junior Coastal Monitoring Program, which became an institute in 2018. At the moment, she's doing a PhD in education at the University in Lisbon of Portugal, with the purpose to develop a junior ocean guardian network. Recently, she integrated the Collab Plus Atlantic team, contributing to education, ocean literacy, and citizen science. So, Caroline, please, you can present.
Thank you, Ana Vitória. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation to participate of this webinar and for the opportunity to share with you a little bit of our experience promoting ocean literacy in practice. So I will share my screen, and I will start with a short video that reveals a little bit of the spirit and the essence of our Junior Coastal Monitoring Program. So as you could see in the Junior Coastal Monitoring Program, children learn about the ocean and the coastal environment through a practical, holistic, and playful approach. Our purpose is to provide to the children an experience to connect with the coastal environment that they live in. And we want them to feel part of the environment and empowered to be protectors, researchers, and the observers of the beach. The children's instrumentalization with research tools provokes their sense of curiosity, exploration, and stimulates their knowledge. During the Junior Coastal Monitoring Program, children learn about tide, waves, and currents, safety in the seabed, meteorological conditions, water quality, impacts of marine debris, and to protect life. among others contents like the origin and composition of the sands, the grain size, and they monitors the trash on the sand too. Since we started the Junior Coastal Monitoring Program in 2012, we are improving and consolidating our methodology, and we've been recognized by some awards over the years. In 2019, we was recognized as the best project in Latin American in oceans category by Green Latin American Award. And since 2019, we started to train educators to replicate our citizen science methodology in other locations on the Brazilian coast, starting in Ubatuba, São Paulo, then in Florianópolis, and in Bituba, Santa Catarina State. Last year, we developed an online ocean mini course for children, which includes 8 classes with scientific experiments that reinforce the content learned in a practical way. And this course is now available in English and Spanish too, and can be reached by a Hotmart platform. And now I'm living in Portugal, doing my PhD in education area in partnership with Escola Azul program from Portuguese Ministry of the Sea, and with the objective to train teachers from Portuguese schools to replicate this methodology. And the idea is to connect children from Brazil and Portuguese coast and develop a junior ocean guardian network to connect them, to share data, ideas, local knowledge, and experience, and hands-on projects to protect the ocean. So I want to thank you and invite you to join us in this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for the presentation. Now, we will watch some presentations sent by speakers that unfortunately are not able to be here present with us, but contributed to this event with recorded videos. So the first video we will watch is from Mission Atlantic project. This video was recorded by Dr. Rachel Kelly, who is a marine socioecologist and postdoctoral research fellow at the Center for Marine Socioecology in Tasmania and the Future Ocean and Coastal Infrastructures Consortium in Canada. This video also comes with the contribution of Dr. Mari Witz, professor of the Marine Science World Maritime University of the International Maritime Organization, a specialized agency of the United Nations. In this video, you will see how ocean literacy can also contribute to topics such as the youth empowerment. So Fiona, if you could please share the video. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Kelly and I'm based at the Centre for Marine Socioecology based in Australia. Very sorry to not be joining you live today, but also hugely grateful for this opportunity to present and pitch our research. My research focuses on the human dimensions of the ocean, including social license, citizen science, and increasingly ocean literacy. Today, I'm recording this actually on World Oceans Day and feel even more strongly about the need to connect people to the oceans. I've had this hugely great privilege to work with Professor Mary Weiss, Professor of Marine Science at the World Maritime University in Sweden. Mary's research aims to understand and predict how marine ecosystems respond to changes in climate and human activities in order to inform ecological and economic consequences of management decisions. Mary is passionate about empowering and listening to the views of young people in achieving solutions to growing and ocean climate challenges. The project we're presenting today brought together an international team of marine researchers from the natural and social sciences, science communicators, and educators, all with the shared aim of engaging and empowering young people with climate and ocean science. Our pitch emphasizes the need to empower and support the young people of today to deal with the climate and ocean challenges that they are inheriting. Note that I'll ask you to please not tweet or share any of today's presentation because this paper is currently under review. Today's young people are the world leaders of tomorrow and the current advocates of change who are calling for climate and ocean action. Whilst young people are aware and concerned about climate and ocean change and its impacts on the planet, they are also ill-equipped to protect their future for the increasing impacts of global climate change. As most of us are aware, climate anxiety is a feeling of anxiety related to the global climate crisis and threat of environmental disaster. Young people across the globe are overwhelmed by the enormity of the climate problem, and recent studies have revealed that these young people feel powerless and stranded by older generations in the climate emergency. They are overwhelmed about their futures. In Australia, for example, more than 80% of young people are anxious about climate change. Modern living and indoor lifestyles mean that today's young people spend less time in nature than previous generations, which limits their opportunities to develop environmental understandings and connections. Linked to this is the fact that young people spend huge amounts of time on screens and on the internet, up to 7.5 hours a day in the US. And here they are exposed to fake news about ocean and the climate, which worryingly influence and impact the environmental attitudes that they are learning and developing. In addition, despite science's consistent calls for climate action, continued lack of collective action across the globe brings about many social injustice challenges, including intergenerational equity, because today's young people are currently inheriting the climate change problems they have had little to no influence in creating. In addition, they've largely been excluded from decision-making processes on climate and ocean issues and have limited agency to protect their future. So how can we empower young people to protect their future and provide them with the skills and knowledge necessary to support them in shaping a more sustainable and secure future? Traditionally, it's been assumed that telling people or young people about climate and ocean issues will result in positive actions and behavior change. This is a deficit model, but in reality, it doesn't hold true. A more dialogic model is needed. Active and interactive conversations and experiential climate and ocean science activities can support the learning and experiences needed to engender pro-environmental attitudes and the action needed in people of all ages. In understanding this and drawing on recent advances and insights from the natural and social sciences, as well as psychology, education, and other sectors, we propose these 5 strategies to enable and empower young people to take action on climate and ocean issues. Critical thinking skills, active dialogue-based science learning, connection to nature, the inclusion of diverse voices, and co-creative visions and solutions for a sustainable future. These strategies demonstrate innovative, interactive, and experiential approaches to climate and ocean science and engagement that can improve literacy, strengthen collaboration and conversation, and importantly, foster agency. We hope these strategies can also spark much needed conversation and action on how we as adults can collaboratively empower and support young people across the globe in co-determining the future sustainability of the planet's climate and ocean. I'd really like to thank Professor Marie Weiss for her mentorship and contribution to this project, as well as a fantastic project team. If you would like to learn more and begin to continue this much needed conversation, please contact us directly on email or on Twitter. Have a great day, enjoy the rest of the sessions, and looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
So that was a really nice presentation on how ocean literacy can also support youth and awareness and action. And in order to continue our event, I have the pleasure to call, we have a second video that we will watch. It's from the AtlantECO project, and this video will be presented by Marjolaine Metabos, who will explain how ocean literacy and what are the ocean literacy activities and the outreach activities of the AtlantECO project.
my name is Marjolaine Matabos. I am a deep sea ecologist at the Deep Sea Lab in Alix-Romer in Brest, France. And today I speak to you from the French research vessel L'Atalante, where I'm running right now the Montmarsat 2021 cruise. So the Montmarsat cruises have been going on for 10 years now, and it's dedicated to the maintenance of the EMSO-Açores Observatory, which is an observatory that is part of the EMSO-IOC European infrastructure, which is a network of different observatories across Europe. And here the observatory is dedicated to the survey monitoring of the Lucky Strike vent field to better understand its dynamics and the functioning of the ecosystems from geological to biological processes. So this year we're on board with the HOV Nautile, which is a manned submersible that will come on board 2 pilots and 1 scientist and can dive down to 6,000 meters. So we've been acquiring data for 10 years now on this observatory, and some of it will be analyzed as part of the AtlantECO project. But something else that we do every year, and we're happy to do through the project, is also to share what we're doing and why we're doing it with the general public, and especially the kids. So this year we share our adventure with kids from Brest, from Social Center. So we built a project which objective is to build and realize a radio show. So we do that with collaboration with the local radio in Brest, with Pierre-Louis Le Seul, and 8 kids from the Social Center Kerango, Brest. So we met the kids before the cruise to explain to them what we were doing, where we were going and why we were doing it. And now we're on board every Wednesday. We have a video conference with them to talk about what we're doing, but also to introduce them to people from the ship and the different jobs we have on board. So the first meeting they met the cook. That was the first person they wanted to meet, Jeff. And they had many questions, and the relation went so well that the cook even promised them to go visit them when he's back on land in September. And next week they will meet the captain of the ship. So in the end, what will come out of it is a radio show that will be done by the kids themselves and that will be broadcast in Brest on the local radio. Thank you. Bye.
That was a nice and windy presentation. And in order to continue our event, I have the pleasure to call Dina Eparkina, our next speaker, who coordinates policy, stakeholder engagement, and communication activities at EUROGOOS, the European component of the Global Ocean Observance System, coordinated by the IOC UNESCO. Dina is also leading a work package on engagement, dissemination, exploitation, and legacy in the European project EuroC, and the work package on stakeholder engagement in a newly funded project, DORS, starting in June. Dina will present how ocean literacy can support ocean observance systems. Dina, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ana Victoria. Hello, everyone. So I was well presented. I will not dwell on this. EuroC, just briefly, is a European Union innovation action. It brings together 55 partners in 16 countries and works very closely with EuroGOOS, who is then part of the GOOS regional systems globally. Our main goal across EuroC and EuroGOOS is to integrate ocean observing and forecasting capacity in Europe in order to deliver better services and products, oceanographic products, to society. But why is ocean literacy important for what we do? Well, you will see here an image from the Sea Change project. We were not involved. I'm just using the very nice image here. We feel that ocean literacy is a fantastic tool, or even many tools, to promote common understanding. Really, ocean literacy is about reaching a baseline of understanding, and that, of course, is very important to co-create joint solutions towards sustainability. Also, ocean literacy helps our community to engage outside of traditional domains where we usually work. We're linking through ocean literacy with art, with culture, sport, recreation, education. It helps us engage in more meaningful dialogue as opposed to just simple outreach with our stakeholders, and therefore enrich science-based responses to the various societal questions that we are trying to address through ocean observations and forecasting activities. And finally, of course, ocean literacy helps us demonstrate the societal value of oceanography and therefore promote funding support, policy support, and overall public support. This is why Eurogos animates or facilitates a network on ocean literacy among our institutes, who are also in biggest part members of the EuroSea consortium. Currently, the network brings together 20 organizations. Those organizations are oceanographic institutes in Europe or Met offices. So really those who are collecting data, processing data, delivering services to their nations and to Europe. And we have conducted a survey, and it turned out that outside of the fact that their main mandate of these organizations is really about delivering oceanographic products and services, forecasts, provisions, storm search and rescue support, maritime support, etc. They're actually also very active in ocean literacy. So we tried to bring together this capacity, highlight it at European level, and deliver joint activities. And we were very successful in these 2 years that we have operated the network. A lot of activities were created at European and also international level, among others with IOC UNESCO. Our latest output is this publication, this report, which highlights the ocean literacy activities in European oceanographic agencies as ocean literacy advocates and really important actors, where scientists themselves are ocean literacy protagonists and not only educators. And here we are making recommendations for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. I'll present these recommendations very briefly. First, we felt that through our survey, through the work we are doing, ocean literacy is really paramount to show how marine research relates to other areas which are critically needed for sustainable development, such as policy, economy, education, and of course, all other societal sectors. Second, a lot of activities are taking place in Europe alone and only in oceanographic institutes and Met agencies. In the last 5 years, there has been over 300 different activities going on locally or at national level. But the impact of these activities is not often assessed at the level that we need to assess it. And of course, the benefits are not fully understood. This is, of course, related to the lack of funding for most of these activities, or very short-term funding. And here we come to point 3, where we believe, and this is why one of the reasons we put forward this policy brief by Eurogos, is that ocean literacy should be recognized as a significant action and a research field on its own in oceanography and ocean observations and forecasting, with an adequate funding support. Finally, this will help also connect with other disciplines and have even better results. For example, work closely with the education sector, but also one of the obvious examples is closer connectivity with the communications and marketing specialists. They will help delivering ocean literacy outreach, which is much more impactful and appealing. Collaborations among the ocean literacy practitioners are very important to strengthen our capacity and empower the practitioners in our work. Through the last 2 years, we have seen how much enthusiasm has been shared among the members of our network and how fruitful this interaction has been, because we were just started co-developing very fast. And I know from other meetings that really practitioners, the more they meet, the better, because the sharing of the practice and the spreading the expertise and ideas is extremely important for this very growing community of practice in ocean literacy. And finally, ocean literacy activities should strive to be inclusive and accessible to all. We have seen through the work in oceanographic institutes in Europe that most of the activities are linked to the research centers themselves or research institutes. They are held on the coast. They should also go inland, of course, and it's been mentioned already by several other speakers, should embrace much more fully all the values of society for sustainable development. They should be accessible with people in challenging situations, in hospitals, in prisons. People should be able to access ocean literacy outside of their free time, during their working time, as part of their professional education. And of course, ocean literacy should not only focus on the environmental aspects, but also on the aspects of blue economy, for example, among many others. So this is my last slide, just to tell you where you can find this brief and also some details of our work on ocean literacy in this oceanographic community in Europe, let's call it like that, both for Eurogos and Eurosea. Also, this policy brief is available at the resource library of UNESCO in the Ocean Literacy portal, and of course, many more things are there as well. And the Ocean Best Practices System, again, by IOC. I don't know if some of you maybe know, some maybe don't. This is my child book, The Ocean as My Home. Just new translation came along last week. I already presented it to 3 classes in Brussels. It's in French. Otherwise, 4 other languages are available. Please don't hesitate to contact me for any ideas of collaboration or any other things. And thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Dina, for your presentation. Now I have the pleasure to call Ana Noronha, who is the Executive Director of Ciência Viva, the Portuguese Agency for Scientific Culture. At Ciência Viva, she coordinates initiatives about education and policy awareness of science at national and international level, particularly on space science and ocean literacy. Currently, she is serving a 2-year term as a coordinator of Blue Skills and Ocean Literacy pillar of the Atlantic Strategy and member of the Ocean Decade Communications Advisory Group. So, Anna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. So thank you for this invitation. I'm really very happy to be here to learn what the other colleagues are doing, and there are extraordinary perspectives of collaboration. I will very briefly talk about the anchor because I think that was the subject of the invitation, and I see here a lot of good ideas to share and to collaborate. So just very briefly, the Anchor project is a CSA that is supposed to make the follow-up of the Belém statement and promoting cooperation in these mainly 6 Belém areas, which you certainly know. To do this cooperation is done at several levels and on different means of cooperation. And the different means are, for example, capacity development, which is important for all your projects, or knowledge transfer, or data sharing, etc., infrastructure initiatives, alignment of the infrastructures. And in our case, we were in charge of the ocean citizen awareness and literacy. So what we are talking here today. We were charged to each one of these means of collaboration was tasked to create a joint action that might contribute for the common good, to put up this collaboration. In our case, it was a joint action involving all the Atlantic countries to develop ocean literacy. So what did we choose? So we got a panel of stakeholders and experts from all these different areas, North America, Canada, Brazil, South Africa, Cabo Verde, Angola, and of course from Europe, from previous ocean literacy projects like Sea Change that was mentioned here. And what we came up with was this network of all Atlantic Blue Schools. So the network was launched on the past 2 of June in the All Atlantic Conference. It is led by the Federal University of São Paulo, who have already a very nice experience with the program Maré de Ciência, which had a lot of interaction with the Escola Azul program developed by the Ministry of the Sea in Portugal. And it has also the co-coordination of the Pampa Azul, the program on ocean literacy of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation from Argentina. So this is the 3 coordinators. But of course, we have put up together stakeholders from all the Atlantic Basin to build this network. So we have now 15 countries, and very soon we hope to have the USA. And the idea is to create a network of schools around the Atlantic Basin, cooperating and creating a community of educators. So why a blue school, and how is it an important instrument for ocean literacy? Well, there is a very mature experience in Portugal of the Escola Azul, and we know how important this is to educate the children about the ocean. But is educating the children about the ocean in a holistic way, which is according to the principles of the decade. So the education about the ocean and making these children available about the ocean can be done in any discipline. It can be done not only in sciences, through the 7 principles of ocean literacy, but also in the arts, also in the native language, in everything. The other thing is that these schools have to create a little project and have to get partnerships. So the schools will engage with local stakeholders to help them to develop their project. And these stakeholders can be scientists, of course, which is what we are primarily thinking, but they can also be local authorities and public institutions or companies of the blue economy who can support them technically or helping them sharing services, etc. And of course, this is not only important for education, as Francesca said, ocean literacy is not just about education. Ocean literacy is about spreading the word and empowering the whole society to be able to change behaviors regarding the ocean. So these schools have, on one hand, to engage with stakeholders to create a project. And so ocean literacy will be visible to these stakeholders, and they will have also to communicate to their community. They will have to engage with their community. And as such, they will be powerful instruments of science communication, science awareness communication, ocean conservation, by engaging with the communities and showing them how to change their practices and how to solve environmental problems. So each school in each country or in each Atlantic region will adapt the project or develop the projects at the level and with the cultural flavor that they want. So this is not very mandatory. You have to do this and that. So there is a lot of flexibility for the teacher to adapt. So this is very cultural sensitive. And on the other hand, they will share experiences and there will be trainings that will be provided to these educators. And for this, we of course rely on the scientists that are in the different projects, namely all these wonderful experiences that we have been hearing about during this session. And also, as Dina said, this will be very important, not only for the schools themselves, but for the communities and for the scientists, because by learning how to communicate, they will be enhancing their general capacities. And on the other hand, by going to engaging with the schools and with the communities, they will leverage the impact of their research, get better known, get a larger impact factor for their research. So we believe that the All Atlantic Blue Schools is complementary. It is something that will need to use the scientists and the resources that are being created, but on the other hand, is something that is put at your service, at the service of the scientific community to help disseminate and getting a greater impact for their projects. So I think we are already running late, and I think this is essentially what I had to say. I am very happy to see examples like the one cited by AtlantECO of radio programs from oceanographic ships. This is something that we are also working with the other joint action. The joint action of the capacity building is creating a floating university trainings on board oceanographic ships. And we want very much to partner with them to try to offer these kinds of opportunities of ship-to-shore activities. We have seen the wonderful resources that Tara Foundation is producing in AtlantECO and that are translated in different Belain languages. And the document from Dine Parkina will be very important to convince our researchers that ocean literacy is something that is also for them and that is important for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's a very nice presentation from you. So we will now hear from Manu Prakash, inventor, scientist, and assistant professor of bioengineering at Stanford University, member of the biophysics program in the School of Medicine and the Center for Innovation in Global Health, faculty fellow of Stanford KeyMage, and the affiliate member of the Woods Institute for the Environment. He holds numerous patents on his research and that has been also published in different scientific journals such as PLOS ONE, Journal of Experimental Biology, Science and Nature, among others. And Manu is known for his contributions to Foldscope and Paperfuge, and also his developments on frugal science and innovation that makes medicine, computing, and microscopy accessible to more people across the world. So Manu, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks everyone for having me. It's a little bit early in the day for me, but I think it's pretty late for many of you. I think I'm thrilled to be here. It's been remarkable to hear through many of the sets of approaches that have been described. I'm going to try to present a slightly more complementary view to much of what has been discussed. I want to throw a challenge at all of you to truly understand the scale of the challenge we're dealing with. And I'll do this by two examples from our own work. Firstly, before I begin, I think it's fair to say, just as scientists, but just from my own perspective, the biggest thing that we are trying to do is magnify curiosity. It is at the heart of any literacy, any context of thinking about, if you want to engage people, you have to enable their own innate curiosity. So it is not much about what we do or what knowledge we share with people, but for us, it is about how do we give them the same sets of tools and experience of science that all led us to become so passionately involved and actually trusting the mechanism and methods of science. And to state it, politely, we are in a giant mess. If you think about health, I mean, we're all in a pandemic right here. Less than 10% of people on this planet actually have any vaccines, for that matter. We have an environmental challenge where we don't even know 90 to 99% of where our pollutants actually go. And very specifically on education, because so much emphasis is on education, there's roughly 2 billion kids on this planet, and half of them, more than 1 billion kids, actually live under the poverty line globally. So when we talk about literacy and when we talk about engaging people around the world, maybe 3 billion or so people across the planet living in coastal zones, we are really talking about community that have never had the chance to engage in science or any formal education for that matter. And this is a big challenge when you think about the context of scale. So the wrench that I want to throw in this conversation, and I want all of us to focus on and really think about it, how do we bring scale to this challenge when we are dealing with a planetary scale issue with the context of the ocean entirely connected, and you could say that for many other scenarios. We really have to be ambitious and think at largest scale possible. And most importantly, which is anchored in what has been described and is at the heart of much of the literacy campaigns around the world, is to be inclusive in the context of not just sharing knowledge, but true collaboration between amateurs and individuals and citizens across the planet and professional scientists. We just don't have enough professional scientists on this planet to really deal with the kind of scale and especially the level of behavioral change that we are discussing that is needed, say, in the next decade. I'm going to now, from a doom and gloom, share some positive side of this. I think in terms of thinking about historically, one example that I often think about is the object on the right. I don't know if many of you have recognized this object. This is an object that's size of a beach ball. But it relates to discovery and exploration. This is Sputnik. When Sputnik was launched by the Russians in the end of 1950s, we had absolutely no technology to track a satellite in the sky. Anybody could claim that you've launched a satellite, and along came an incredibly dedicated astronomer, Fred Whipple. And he started what became the world's oldest citizen science program until today, called Operation Moonwatch. Literally taking $10 telescopes that were built on by Radio Shack and built by people. He trained tens of thousands of people, a global network to track one of the most sophisticated technological marvel. And for the next 30 to 50 years, this group of amateur scientists became the heart of anything that was done in the context of tracking satellites. For the next 30 years, there was absolutely no technology that could beat this network. And even till today, the fact that astronomy has such a strong amateur scientist component, the fact that the only supernova that has ever been seen on the planet and imaged directly is by an amateur scientist fixing his camera in Australia, is because of this program. And one of the things that we've been thinking about is how do we truly engage in the experience of science and share that more broadly, a much broader range of disciplines. It's not that this is not possible, it requires the kind of dedication and trust, frankly. Trust is probably the most important thing in engaging communities. I love this picture. If you see in United States, you can't read it, but I'll read this for you. It says, Mrs. Lloyd Eisenhower, housewife volunteer, sought Sputnik 2. And frankly, many of the Sputniks that were launched after the first series of Sputniks were all spotted by these amateur astronomers. And they're not just watching the sky, they're actually doing telemetry. You can see they're sitting in a grid, they're watching a grid of the sky, and they have little Morse code buttons in their hands. This information of when a satellite enters their field of view and leaves the field of view is relayed back to a punch card programmable computer that tells them the trajectory of this object. So they are really doing sophisticated trajectory mapping from their homes. So let me share, how do you really expand ideas like this more broadly? For the last decade, we've been focused on thinking about science, diagnostics, and ecological surveillance. There is a large number of tools. I will focus on two tools on microscopy just for today's context. There is a number of tools that we have developed in the perspective of thinking about the microscopic world. The challenge that we face, both in the context of the ocean and actually in the context of health, is the fact that microscopic life is invisible. You can go out wherever, whichever city you are in, find an average person on the street and ask them if they have seen their own blood cells, or even if they've ever seen a microbe. And it is most likely the case that they would answer that to be no. So the fact that it remains that much of this world runs because of microbes, much of the oxygen is produced by microorganisms. Every single disease that you can think about has a microscopic origin. And on the other hand, we live in a society where people have never actually experienced the microscopic world. So I'll focus on two projects, one based on a community project called Plankton Planet, and then the other one I'll briefly describe what we have done in the perspective of Foldscopes. So here is one of the other challenges. When I at least started working in oceanography and started thinking about, with talking to my colleagues, I very quickly learned the fact that oceanography is inaccessible. You know, the oceans themselves are inaccessible because of just how expensive they end up being. The fact that operation of a ship can cost between $50,000 to $60,000 per day implies only very few of us will be fortunate enough to really spend as much time on the ocean doing science. And on the other hand, meeting a colleague of mine, Columban, which I'll talk about in a second, I became aware of the fact that on the other hand, there are incredible individuals on the ocean already. If you look at the number of sailboats, between 15 to 20,000 sailboats at any moment of time, and even much larger number of cargo ships that are around in the ocean, there is an incredible community of people already deeply passionate about the ocean, far beyond the context of science itself. And that realization led us to start an organization called Plankton Planet. We started in 2017, and this was led by Columban and Roscoff, who's probably actually listening. One of the perspectives of the approach that we have come together as a team is focused on ensuring makers, mariners that actually do spend time in the ocean, and scientists and artists together form a community that enables everybody in this community to engage directly in the experience of science. Much of the vision of this is shared in a couple of documents that are already online. I would highly recommend everybody to take a look at the manifesto that we have written on Plankton Planet. It's on bioRxiv and currently available. But I'll briefly focus on what has happened since we started. One of the key aspects was to directly engage and test, can we train what Columban likes to call citizen science, folks that are passionate about the sea already, spending time at sea, but to truly have them do high quality oceanography and science. And we've been able to do that by multiple measures, both in the context of genomic surveillance, but much of what I've been involved in is from a perspective of building low-cost, high-throughput imaging tools. One of the tools that we developed is called PlanktonScope. Anybody in the world can build this tool. The tool is available online. It's completely open source. But one of them, literally in the last 2 years, almost around 100 or so communities around the world have engaged. Literally anybody can engage and define the sets of features that they're interested in understanding in their ecosystem. This is a quick video of operation of PlanktonScope in a community in Chilica. And one of the perspectives about engaging indigenous populations that engage and depend and have their livelihood depend on the ocean that they live in, it becomes extremely important to be thinking about these communities. And then the data that comes out of this autonomous tool is one-to-one map to, if any of you use flow camps that cost upward of $20,000 or something, we can match that one-to-one. So if you want to learn more about this program, you can look at planktonplanet.org or planktonscope.org. I'm going to switch to say a few more words about Foldscope, building upon the theme of sharing experience. And I think the lesson to learn here personally for me for the last decade has been we have to pass the ownership of the projects that we create to communities around the world if they are going to sustain and really grow and amplify that. So Foldscope started with our vision of thinking about a pencil for microscopy. What does it mean for every single kid in the world to actually have a microscope? That led us to design a $1 microscope that's built out of a piece of paper. And we did an experiment which made us realize that technology was not what we were focused on. We decided when we built this tool in the lab that we will ship around 100,000 of these tools to anybody literally who asks for it. That was a big ask for a small lab. So the 3 people engaged in the project, me and 2 of my graduate students, we built the kinds of machine that allowed us to manufacture around 100,000 of these instruments, and then we literally shipped them to anybody who asks. And what that created, with no questions asked, they could do whatever they wanted to do. It was for their own curiosity. We were not asking them to send us a report. We were not trying to document what impact we would have. We just wanted them to see the microscopic world. And we ended up creating, which has now become the world's largest amateur microscopy community. So first of all, what can this tool do? You can literally watch bacteria from your spit. So you can watch microscopic life in all its glory. And that really is the hook in terms of thinking about what does it mean to be part of this world? What does it mean? So you can take a drop of ocean water and really explore the breadth of ecosystems that exist in every one of these drops. In the last 5 years, at this point, we have shipped of the order of 1.5 million foldscopes around the world. This is a fairly old map. And most importantly, I think the biggest thing that I want to emphasize here, the ownership of implementation of a project on this technology and the framework that we have built. There are apps associated with this. There is an online platform where people document what they do. All the ownership lies with local communities. They get to decide what they want to do. They get to decide the communities they want to engage, and they get to decide the scale that they want to engage in. Every one of these dots could be thousands of foldscopes in a community, or literally a few foldscopes. And one of the perspectives is it could be governments, it could be many organizations like Tara Foundation represented here itself. And it's very important to think about this, where we don't control the project per se. The ownership truly belongs to people that we engage in. So here are a few examples of what people have done with foldscopes. Much of that is described on the community website called microcosmos.foldscope.org. One of the things that you can first see here is amateur sailors that are exploring the ocean, all the way to very structured programs in the Amazon, in the Mount Everest, people looking for microbiodiversity. Literally, this is a picture from a program by the Tara Foundation. Here is another example from the expedition that was a microplastics expedition, sharing the microscopic world with indigenous populations. The tools have been used to actually literally educate world leaders. And most importantly, I think something that I'm most proud of is to be able to build programs with governments top down. So this is a program with the Indian government. These numbers are old, but at this point, roughly around 500,000 of these sets of 200,000 units are deployed, and roughly 500,000 units are spoken for. With literally in 1 year, the government agencies engaged, conducted around 1,000 workshops. And one of the things that ends up happening when you engage top down with entities that also have in their mandate engagement is you bring these tools to people who have never been in the fold of science. Roughly around 400 or so papers have been written by these community members sharing their own experiences. While we have just written one paper that actually describes the work, it is really upon these communities to bring and share their voices in what they actually accomplish. Many of these communities are indigenous communities. So this, for example, is nomadic tribes and learning about diagnostics for plant pathogens. Here are essentially veterinary scientists engaging in conservation work. Here is an example from conflict zones. This is from Iraq, literally 6 months after the war ended, because many of these kids have never had the chance to go to school for the last 7-8 years. On the context of the ocean, here is an indigenous community in Lake Chillica. And one of the fascinating things about this work is because everything is openly documented, Any of you can go online. So if you click on this URL on the top, you will identify the project lead that's leading this project, and you will see last 5 years of the work of this individual engaged in the community in that context. I'm already running out of time, but I want to close with this one example of a single individual. This is Mo Pandirajan, seen in the back. I heard from him 4 years ago. He wrote to me in Tamil, a language I don't understand. I translated it. I realized that he was running a school of 12 kids. I sent him some foldscopes. And 4 years later, this one single individual has trained 100,000 kids across India. After English, Tamil is the most spoken language. He gave up his career. He essentially started traveling across the country. We have shipped him tens of thousands of instruments, and he came up with programs in literacy microscopic world. For example, he would go to a place without any explanation, post pictures of the microscopic world in a vegetable market, something that I would have never imagined when I'm thinking about this work. He would train students and have them be around, but literally with no explanation. It's almost kind of like a Trojan horse for science. And literally, that's the kind of mentality that you need if you really care about engaging everyday people. It's been remarkable to see how far we have come with these communities, but also anything that we have done is still a drop in the ocean. Because, I mean, you can see in this picture the level of excitement kids and communities have in engaging in science. And my question and challenge to all of you is, how do we scale that? I mean, we are at 1 to 2 million kids, but there are, as I said, 2 billion kids on this planet and 3 billion people living across on coastal zones. So I'm going to leave that as a challenge. If you want to learn more, you can also see some of our community projects, and especially a class that I'm teaching more recently called frugalscience.org. And I already realize I'm out of time, so I'm going to stop sharing. And if there are any time, we can take questions.
Thank you very much, Manu. It's very exciting to see the impact of the initiative and how inspiring it is. I will now kindly open for questions. So if anyone has a question about that can be addressed for the speakers, you can kindly do on the chat or even open your microphone and talk to the speakers directly. Do you have a question, Daniele?
Yes, I would like. Hi, I'm Daniele Iudicone from the AtlantECO project, and thank you for participating in this webinar and for the exciting presentation. I mean, it's really nice to see that one can have impact, and I particularly like the idea of frugal science as a general concept. So I think it will be really interesting in the next future to work together within this project, and here not only this project, but there are here representatives of other projects working on the Atlantic for the next 4 years. And so I was just wondering about this, how important do you think is this citizen science aspect? So how important is to empower people to look at their environment and the environment in which they live? It's more, is this an important component, or it's only education toward, to bring people closer to science?
So I don't know, Daniel, if you're asking that to me, but I can definitely share my opinions. I think we sometimes create this false dichotomy of outreach versus the fundamental science. They are many a times we ourselves, when we are thinking about a question, are just curious about an idea, and you turn a stone and you find a hidden universe of a million things that we didn't know about. Every single citizen on this planet does this exact same thing, except they have not had the kind of professional training to turn their insights into unique projects or what the scientific community might value. And the purpose of frugal science, in my perspective, is to share the experience of science directly with people. Firstly, for them to understand the process of science such that it builds trust. When you and I say that there are 1 billion microplastics in a single glass of water, why should somebody believe you, or believe me for that matter? But that experience of science and understanding the process of science allows people to directly engage and find evidence for themselves. They might not write a paper that describes the concentration of microplastics, but they will be able to build their own framework of how to understand that. Secondly, when we start thinking about how large our planet is and how few scientists are on this planet, we start realizing that we are losing ecosystems much faster than we can even identify them. The same is true for the ocean. The same is true for our terrestrial aquatic ecosystems. And the process of engaging far more broadly both makes incredible scientific communities that are already existent, but do not have the kinds of resources to really be able to alleviate their own work, and simultaneously create completely new individuals, entities, programs that would be looking at these ecosystems more broadly. And that is beneficial to science itself, because we ourselves are fine. I mean, if it takes 30 years for us to identify that Europe has lost 3/4 of all its insects, that teaches us not just the fact that we have lost these insects, but we are not monitoring closely enough. Because, I mean, the next 30 years, then we are going to discover something that makes us realize that we were not paying attention. And I think much of that has to really do with broadening our scope of who even we call a scientist, for that matter. You know, it's a matter of trust, but we have built incredible infrastructures to be able to collect data from communities, but have them have a voice in sharing what that means, while providing all the analysis tools that we ourselves use in our scientific work to a broader group of people. So this might be a biased view. I think this is why I don't like using the word citizen science, because it's almost, it has been coaxed into as if citizens are at the service of scientists, that we need them and they will do our work and then pass on the nice data to us, and then we will figure out what it means. I think we really have to be thinking about a collaborative approach, and we cannot dictate, you know, once scientific tools are broadly shared, we have to have enough strength in our ecosystems, the knowledge ecosystems, for them to lead to new insights that are actually owned by communities that are engaging.
Thank you, Manu.
I totally agree. Yeah. Can I react quickly, Anna? Just 1 second.
Yes, another
Anna,
question.
just to say that, just another question, comment. Just I totally agree. I really like this point of view, and I hope we can collaborate in the next week or month to help you disseminating these tools across Atlantic community. So trying to have so we want to learn from you about the process you use to disseminate. Okay, not only just buying scope and sending around, but really want to learn the details of the process in which you build trust, with this understanding of the environment, etc. Okay, so not today there is no time, but we discuss. Okay, thank you very much again.
Thank you all. If there is any other question, you can please write or just open your microphone. So we still have 2 minutes.
I have a quick question for Manu Colombo speaking. Yeah, Manu, just hey, how the Sputnik program that you mentioned. So how was the data basically integrated into a database and making and because I think that the passage from observation by people to planetary observations is very challenging. So I'm just curious about this particular case.
Yeah, I think the Sputnik case is remarkable, and I would highly recommend anybody who's interested in this to also look at this book called Operation Moonwatch. It really describes in the granular details of how that community was built. You know, I think there are certain good lessons to take. Of course, it was a military program. You have to remember this. It was during the time of the fear of the Soviets watching. And so there was certain of those sets of elements that I do not agree with, even if they were strategic importance. But that program was competing with the defense secret tracking programs, one-to-one. The way the data collection was built was every one of these sets of communities was not, I mean, some of them were individuals, but most of them were designed as clubs. Every club would have between 10 to even 100 observers. They would have a certain sets of schedules, but most importantly, they were doing quantitative data collection. So they would be given a window of the sky, the trajectory of the satellite from the entrance and the exit. They would record the time of that traversal in that window. And that was directly relayed to a computer program via literally Morse code. And the next day, the club would receive the new trajectory based on the limited data. And then that trajectory improved over time so that they could truly map, because of course you can have a satellite, but if it somehow suddenly changes trajectory, you don't know what the Russians are doing. That was the motto of most of this. So it was very important to make very meticulous observations. And for the next 60 years, those records are publicly available. It's remarkable to see that whenever a satellite was launched, some of these community members were the first ones to indicate that. It would get flagged in the defense databases, and all of these defense telescopes would then turn and take over from that time.
Okay.
Because of course the sky is so big, these defense telescopes could do a very good job at tracking, but not identifying. So eventually it became a collaboration. And of course, much of the program early on was funded by some of these defense groups because there was a sense of thinking about. And the program was started, most interestingly, before any satellite was ever launched. So this is, I mean, you know, we are in this state where we are watching decay of our ecosystems and we are struggling to find something. Fred's vision was far beyond satellites, but he realized that we will not, this technology is about to come and we do not have a community to really map it. So I think we have to not just be thinking about problems that we are in right now, but 10 years from now, what do we expect the ocean to be? What do we expect those ecosystems? Are we actually ready to engage in the level of granularity that we need to be measuring the world?
And we are just at the in the first major microbial crisis of our living.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah. So 10 years from now, we have to anticipate that the kind of data that we need and the kind of policies that that data would drive would be far more granular. So we have to do at least an order of magnitude better than what we might even want to do at this moment. It's an incredible book. Yeah, it's called Operation Moonwatch. Again, I don't agree with everything and I don't agree with the militarization of that aspect, but that was what was done.
Thank you, Manu, for your considerations. I will just quickly present now the efforts that we are doing and pass for the next phase of this webinar. And thank you very much, everyone, for the presentations. To finalize this event, I will just present the AtlantECO activities that we as UNESCO will develop. And Fiona, if you could please open the presentation, I appreciate. Otherwise, don't worry, Fiona. I think I'm able to do it as well.
Okay. Seems to be telling me it's not possible.
I think, are you able to see?
Here we go.
Okay, great. So So now I will quickly present for you what are the ocean literacy tasks that we as UNESCO will be dealing on the AtlantECO project. And as some of you know, and it was already presented before, but the just to clarify, the AtlantECO project is a project that develops unifying frameworks that provide this knowledge-based resource for a better understanding and management of the Atlantic Ocean and its ecosystem services. And the project will also engage with citizens, stakeholders from industry and also policy in order to stimulate responsible behavior and blue economy. So the project is coordinated between, is an international project coordinated between with partners from Europe, Brazil, and South Africa. And in this project, once we deal with the ocean literacy topic, we also wanted to understand how to bring the topics of the project with this ocean literacy approach that can be artistic, historical, geographical, scientific, sustainable, or even cultural aspects of the Atlantic. So we want to understand also how to bring the microbiome, the plastics and the plastisphere, and also the sea connectivity of the ocean, and explain those concepts that can be even very complex scientifically to target audiences that are not often in contact with this topic. And those topics can also be explored, taking into account the ocean literacy perspective, which is multidisciplinary. So how we will develop this ocean literacy tools in the AtlantECO project? So we, for the moment, have main target groups. Those main target groups are educators, but also, and for the educators as well, the students, because they deal with students, and as well blue economy stakeholders, mainly aquaculture. So we aim to create materials that can explain the topics of the project and also scientific concepts that were already produced. And we aim to do that by taking into account inclusivity, also gender aspects on the Atlantic. And we have inside of the project a very nice group of people, which is composed of scientists, but also ocean literacy practitioners, which is called Science Popularization Group. So I think it's a very nice practice to do inside of those projects, because it's a way that you can have a board to check and to support the sharing of information and the creation of those ocean literacy materials facilitated for those target audiences. So as UNESCO, we have this plan for the creation of ocean literacy materials, which is first of all create one Atlantic toolkit of the principles, because as you saw from the first presentation, which was my colleague Francesca, we have 7 essential principles of ocean literacy, but those principles are adaptable and they can be adapted to different cultures, to different geographies, and even to the Atlantic. So it's nice that we have this toolkit adapted to the geographical, to the artistic, or even to the cultural aspects of the Atlantic, and of course the scientific points of view as well. We will also develop lesson plans for teacher. We already have some lesson plans that have the microbiome, for example, as a topic, but we also aim to create new, and we also want to create ocean literacy materials for aquaculture stakeholders. Those aquaculture stakeholders are also in contact with the sister projects, and some people from the sister projects are here present on this webinar as well, which are mainly Aquavitae and Astral. We also work in the project in close collaboration with the communications team, so it's good that we don't overlap efforts, and we have this good coordination, because we believe that ocean literacy is also integrated to somehow communications of our efforts. And we plan as well to do more webinars like this and to join this Atlantic community of ocean literacy, which has been very nice, and also organize outreach events. So all the materials that we will develop through the length of the AtlantECO project, the 4 years, will be later distributed and shared in the Ocean Literacy portal. So I'm not sure if all of you know, but you can also type later on your computer this link that is here on this box. And so the Ocean Literacy portal, for those that don't know, is also this one-stop shop portal and a place for the ocean literacy communities to share and also to upload resources. So if you are interested in ocean literacy, if you want to share your resources or even know what other people are doing in other parts of the world, you can enter on the portal and share your activities there. And well, mainly that was my presentation. Thank you very much. I am very happy to, can you still see my screen? Just 1 second. I think I cannot remove it from here.
I think I've been sharing, Anna.
Okay, if you are able to close, please.
Oh.
So you have not seen my presentation? I don't think so.
Because I tried to share
one slide.
Okay, but I mean, on the speech, I explained everything, so don't worry. In any case, I would like to thank all of the speakers, all the presentations, all the participants. This was a very nice event. We passed the time because I think we all needed this moment as well to share those initiatives. So it was very nice to see so many projects happening worldwide and different perspectives from all over the world. So thank you very much for all the speakers who had carefully provided this insightful vision of ocean literacy. I know that for some of you, it's difficult to meet at this time because for some of you, probably it's night, and for others, it's too early in the morning. But I would like to kindly thank you, everyone that participated on this event. I would also like to thank the AtlantECO project team and the project coordinators for the opportunity to share those initiatives. A special thanks as well for the European Commission, who is kindly funding this initiative by the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. And last but not least, in UNESCO, as I told you, we have the Ocean Literacy portal, so I will kindly share the link here on the chat in case you want to visit our portal. So thank you very much for all your participation.
Just briefly, I also put in the chat the really super recently published Ocean Literacy Framework for the UN Decade of Ocean Science. So I invite you all to read this publication, because it's really, like, the objective is really to set the scene and create this community around the Ocean Decade. We also had recently approved an ocean literacy program for the Ocean Decade. So this is going to be, like, again, the program for ocean literacy over the next 10 years. So I invite you all to follow the developments of this program, and I will send you more information to see how we can collaborate on this as well.
Thank you very much, Francesca. That was well remembered. So I will kindly close the event now. And just a reminder, because this event will be recorded, as soon as we record, we will also upload on YouTube, and you will be able to share, if you wish, with your networks. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.